Hey guys, welcome to our little weekly talk. I put these together mostly for people on my doTERRA team, but I've realized that other people might need this too. So I'm going to put them out here on YouTube and just invite whoever needs to hear this because I feel like this is an important thing that kind of started percolating for me in July, like in the summertime. And I was like, I don't know, it kind of feels like a distraction from the work that I'm actually supposed to be doing. This is stuff that I'm really passionate about. It's really fun for me. And it's kind of a culmination of all the different areas of focus that I've had over my life and career. So I just want to bring it all together in this one place and have it here for you and invite you in if it's something that you need to be working on. And it's the topic of self-care. And that topic gets kind of tossed around a lot, like self-care. We think, oh, I'm going to take this week at the spa and really focus on caring for myself. Or I'm going to sit down and do my nails, and that's really caring for myself. And those might be helpful. Like a lot of times that getting the surface together really helps the whole self, but we are more than that, and we are complex and wonderful creatures, and we really do need to focus on all areas of self-care. So I put together this list that's like an inspired list that anybody could do. I literally had a person in mind who just had a baby with two little kids at home. And I thought, what could she do to really focus on self-care, like all aspects of herself, body, mind, and spirit? What can she do to make sure she isn't neglecting the most important parts of herself, and how she can actually give more to the people that she is caring for in addition to herself? So I keep hearing this phrase get tossed around, that like, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. And while that's true in some aspects, if you're a believer, it's not really true, because when the cup is empty is when God comes in, right? That's when he's there to pour out through us. So that whole notion of pouring from an empty cup, it feels true, it feels right, but that's only when we're talking about like our flesh, ourselves, because we definitely have limits. So I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you my story, where I'm coming from, why I'm thinking about this, and why I feel as a person on a journey a little bit further ahead than some people might be, or you might still be in that season where caring for yourself just feels like it's been taken off the table for you. Like, sure, I would love to be able to take care of myself, but it's just not an option right now. So here's a little bit of my story. When I became a mom, I had a really easy first baby. He slept through the night when he was 6 weeks old. Probably because he was big when he was born, but yeah, people were like, he shouldn't be sleeping through the night. He's only 6 weeks old. You need to wake him up and feed him, because I was exclusively breastfeeding. But he was just big, and I wasn't going to wake him up. I felt like he was a gift from God, because God knew that he made me to need sleep. And he gave me a baby who slept because he knew what I needed. So my husband and I thought we were like the best parents. We were like, we should write books because this is easy. I don't know what anybody's talking about. I had a really good support network. Even after I went back, after my baby was born, I went back to work for a little bit. I worked at our church, and I had a ton of wise moms around me, supporting me, praying for me. Everybody was, invested in this little baby's life. And I would go to church and people would hold him so I could hear a sermon. And it was easy. Then I had a second baby, and she did not want to sleep at all, ever. My lowest point was when I was at the grocery store and I was fumbling around, like trying to, pay for my groceries. And I said something about not sleeping well. And the grocery store checkout lady was like, oh, I've heard lavender essential oil is calming for babies. And I was like, shut it, lady. Like, I've tried all the oils. Like, I sell oils. I didn't say that out loud. I was just like, oh, that's interesting. Blink, blink. Like, great. Because there was nothing, like, this child didn't need anything physiologically. She just wanted to hang out. Like, she just wanted to hang out at night. We tried everything. We tried the cry it out, which feels like you're torturing your baby. It was hard, you guys. So when she was about 10 months old, we moved out of state for my husband's job. So I moved away from my support network. I moved away from my sister. I moved away from all these wise women who were praying for me and holding my baby. And I went into survival mode. Like, I don't remember packing our house. I don't remember moving. Somehow it happened. My husband was already down here in Nashville working for a couple weeks in the process of like showing our house, getting both the kids out, cleaning the house, getting the dog out, like going somewhere for this period of time while people looked at the house, selling the house, packing it, moving, all that. It was crazy. So fast forward, she did not sleep through the night until she was 14 months old. And during that time, I knew that I should be caring for myself. I knew I had access to all these tools. I was very aware that I needed to get some exercise, but I was so dang tired. All I could think to do was drink more coffee and eat horrible food to feel like, celebrating making it through the day, right? Like, that's like, oh, I made it through the day. My husband's home from work. I could check out a little bit. It was a hard season. And so even though I had all of these tools at my disposal, I chose not to use them. And my body started falling apart. And my mental state was poor. And my emotions were, I was just tired and crumbly. That's that feeling. Have you ever felt like that? Like, just crumbly, like if somebody touches you, it just like break apart. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So why do we do that? Like, you probably have most of these tools at your disposal right now. And why do we choose not to employ them? I don't know. So when there aren't enough hours in the day, whose needs are neglected? Yours, right? Like, probably yours. I'm going to read some of my notes here that I made so I stay on track and I can keep this to like a 30-minute. I try to keep these to 30 minutes. How can mothers care for themselves, their whole selves, body, mind, and spirit, in simple, sustainable ways? So we can't go to the spa. Well, maybe you can. Like, maybe you can go to the spa like once a week, once a month, but like most people can't do that. So I have most people in mind. These are designed to be like really simple, sustainable methods, right? So when you become a mom, maybe you feel like you lost yourself a little bit. Like, you hear that expression, like, oh, she really let herself go. But like, she didn't let herself go. Herself was pried from her cold, dead fingers, usually. Like, right? You try to hang on to yourself. You try to like do the things that you've always done. Like, don't you wish you could have back that time that you spent in high school primping? Like, did you spend like hours with your runs getting ready to go somewhere? Don't you wish you could like bottle that up and have a little bit of a refund on it? Just like an hour here and there. Because most of the time we feel like we've succeeded if we've just gotten a shower, right? So moms kind of get the leftovers. Like, I have this picture that I saved in my Instagram a few years ago that like I made a peanut butter and jelly for my son, and then he wanted it to be in a shape. So I cut a heart shape out of it. And then that was my lunch that day, was like the crust, like the leftover skeleton of a heart crust. So I could post that somewhere here so you can see what I'm talking about. But man, it really does feel like that. It's just such a picture of motherhood, and motherhood's so beautiful. Like, especially when they get bigger and you start seeing some of the fruit for like what you've invested. It's always wise to invest in our children. It's always wise to invest in our families. If you're a grandma, man, that's going to be my jam. Being a grandma is going to be where it's at. I loved my grandma. She was the best. And I felt like that nudge from God when I was pregnant with my second one, like thinking about, man, I can't wait to be a grandma. Most people probably aren't like that, but I don't really mind getting older. And I really loved my grandma. I loved the way she did things. And God was like, do that now. Just do that. Do the fun things. Like, my grandma would take us out and on the frozen pond. Like she always knew it was like really frozen. And they lived in like way up in Northeast Ohio by the lake. And so we knew it was frozen. And so she would take us out and play with us. She always was like baking and doing stuff like that. But then she got to send us back, with our mom. So it was like she got refreshed and did all the fun stuff. But God's encouraged me to do a lot of that fun stuff with my kids now. And it really is like, you really can like just loosen up, do some of the fun stuff. We can't go out on lakes here in Tennessee because they never freeze all the way through, but we can do other fun things. So even when I would like chop up fruits and veggies for my kids, I would not eat them because I would be trying to reduce the amount of work that I was doing. And so I was like not taking care of myself. I didn't feel worthy of eating the fruits and veggies that I had worked to cut up. Does that make sense? Does anybody else do that? So let's talk about maybe how self-care isn't selfish. A lot of ways that it's framed, like a lot of like if you search self-care on Pinterest or whatever, it might be framed in really selfish ways. But we're gonna reframe it in a way that helps you to be a better person, to helps you to do better work. Like it makes your mind sharper and clearer, and it's going to allow you to do better work. It's going to allow you to be more compassionate and empathetic with your people. And it's going to allow you to live into your purpose. Like what are you here for? What are you supposed to be doing? It's going to pull away some of those distractions. So all of it's going to focus back on your whole self. And we can fall out of balance. Like that season when I was out of balance and I was caring for my spirit. I will say that like that was the easier part to care for because I knew I was like clinging to Jesus with everything I had. So in the middle of the night, I'd be rocking that baby back to sleep and just thinking like, Jesus, help me. Or just like praying really honest prayers and like praying peace over her body and praying sleep and rest. And so my connection with God at that time was very good, but I became pretty disconnected from my mind because it was tired, and I was pretty disconnected from my body, and I was just giving it whatever it felt like it deserved, not really what it needed, if that makes sense. So let's talk about all three of those in really balanced ways. Do you have a preferred, discipline? Like is yours all body? Like I know some people who are just like work out all the time and that's like their focus, and other people who live in their heads and their mind is their focus, and then some people who are spiritual. So here are some things that we're getting wrong with like self-care. So real self-care is going to be sustainable. It's going to make you better. It's going to align with the long term. It's going to have healthy results. Like your family is not going to resent you for taking care of yourself or taking a week away at the spa like they would if it was like a treat yourself and you're like overspending or like taking all this time away from them. Real self-care is going to balance your whole self. So people say they don't have time or they don't have the money or they don't have childcare to indulge in this, but really we need to find ways. And so these are those ways. So let's talk about those. Keep your big picture in mind, like keep the long term in mind. And I always say like your whole dang self, like your body, your mind, and your spirit. So if you're short with your kids, you probably need a mommy timeout. If you feel that like crispy feeling where I was talking about where you're just going to like fall apart, you probably need to take care of yourself. You need to first be like drinking more water. I'll get into that in a minute. So in my season of neglect, like I said, if I had like any time to care for myself, I just chose the soul care aspect because that was easiest for me. So my body was tired, but I know that if we're caring for our bodies, it's going to feed into the other aspects of our life. So every day you can be moving and stretching your body, trying to get more rest. I know if you have a baby who's wakeful, it's not going to work. And you could sleep when the baby sleeps with your first one, but with the second one, you can't do that. Especially if your first one's at home and like, you know, could be getting into things or needs to be taken care of. You need to drink enough water. You should be drinking like half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 150, you should be drinking like 75 ounces of water a day. And then eating nutrient dense food and getting supplementation, because unfortunately our food supply is not great. And so even if we are eating healthy food, we're still not getting what our bodies actually need. So I just want to remind you, because maybe you need reminded, that you are the only you. Like no one else can bring what you can bring, and no one else is made the way that you're made. Last spring, I did the Strengths Finder assessment, and it was really helpful to understand that no one has my top strengths or has my strengths in the same order that I do. Like it's almost statistically impossible. It's like 1 in something billion. So there's 7 billion people on the planet. If you ever find your strengths twin, it's going to be, you know, miraculous. That would be so amazing. But it is worth investing in you and understanding you so that you know what you can bring to those around you, to bring to the world, that bring to this time and place that needs you. So let's talk about your mind. I want you to think about guarding your mind as you would an asset, like not infecting it with negative things, not consuming or critiquing social media all day. That was an easy thing to do to feel connected. Like it was tricking me into feeling connected in that season, in that dry season when I moved away from my people and I had a sleepless baby. It was tricking me into feeling like I was still, you know, with my people, or that I was actually getting connection, but it's not real. Okay. So I love Andy Crouch's book from probably 10 years ago called Culture Making. And he talks about asking yourself, are you a consumer of culture? Are you a critic of culture? Or are you a creator of culture? So obviously you have to do a little bit of each, but like we should be creating more culture than we are. We should be writing more stories and songs and good things, like even just journaling what you are going through at this time. Create things, make things pretty, like do good things, like make things around you better than how you found them. So be careful about what you're consuming. If you have empathy high in your strengths, it's probably wise for you to limit the amount of news you consume, because it can be crippling. It can be crippling, and you can't really do good work if you're bogged down with heavy things that you really can't control. So know your strengths. So know what lights you up, know what makes your wheels turn, know what is going to be encouraging for you. Know if you need a mom's night out or just to get up for quiet time before your kids are up. So know how you're wired. So doing the Strengths Finder assessment is going to help that. Knowing your Enneagram type is going to help that. There's lots of quizzes for the Enneagram, but I don't recommend doing a quiz. I recommend looking at, let me see if I have the book within reach here. The Road Back to You by Suzanne Stabile and Ian Crone. The first page of each chapter is going to give you a list of Enneagram type tendencies. And so whichever one you identify with most is probably your Enneagram type. You don't need to know right off the bat. Sometimes it might take you a while of studying this to understand how you are made. But I like that personality profile because it's dynamic and it shows you which direction you go in health and which direction you go in unhealth. So it's been really beneficial. My friends and I love that. And there's a lot of ways that you can incorporate essential oils with understanding that. It's good to know who you are so that you know how to give yourself what you need, especially in ways that don't interfere with other people and make you better. So a lot of times we trick ourselves into thinking we're caring for ourselves, but like checking out and like watching hours of Netflix is not self-care. It might feel like we're shutting down, but it's actually not a healthy, productive thing to do. There's lots of other things that we do when we're avoiding good work. That's just one example. So let's talk about the soul aspect. I love this quote. Some of it's attributed to C.S. Lewis, but I think the original quote goes back to George MacDonald. Don't teach a child you have a soul, teach them you are a soul, you have a body. So we have to take care of these bodies, but our soul is what we take with us. We don't get to take these bodies with us. So I first led a small group on soul care in 2010. It was a really great, I do have that one within reach. Discovering Your Soul Care, Mindy Caliguire. It's a really, really good resource. I've used that a bunch of times and taught a bunch of people through that. And they're really practical workbooks that are good. They ask good questions. They're simple, but they still dig into some meat. So most people live their whole lives neglecting the soul piece. And then it reveals itself in times when they're pressed at all sides, or it reveals itself toward the end of their life or something like that. So I want you to give your soul some consideration. Like, it's worth considering. As a believer in God and in heaven, it seems that I should make a big investment in this aspect of myself, right? Because like I said, I get to take it with me. I don't take the other parts with me. So no matter what you believe, it's always good to ask yourself hard questions. If the questions make you squirm a little bit, you're on the right track. Okay. So dig into those things. So you want to assess where you are as far as your health, your soul health goes. Align it with your values. Like, my values are biblical values. And so I want what I'm doing and what I'm feeling, and I want that to align with those. And then activate. So I want my best work to flow out of that place where it's the parts of me that are being sanctified, that are becoming like Christ. So I hope that makes sense. Kind of might sound woo-woo if you haven't dug into those. But so we do these simple challenges on a regular basis. And I have a community on Facebook called Super Simple Self-Care. This month, we're focusing on teachers because I had some traffic come my way from a viral teacher post that I posted. I'm not even a teacher anymore. But we can relate these to anybody. So like I said, when I developed these things, I was thinking of a mom who just had a baby and has other little ones at home. And there's no possible way for her to like escape and go, spend time at the spa or get a massage or get her hair done. Her priorities are feeding those people and helping them to stay clean and alive and, grow and thrive. So I designed all of these practices to fit into that. So if it can fit into that constraint, it can fit into your constraints. If you're maybe a caregiver of a parent at this point, or you're busy, or you're a working mom, it can fit into your constraints. And so just jump in when we do these challenges. Share it on social media. Get involved in the Facebook group that we have. Go ahead and watch my other YouTube videos on using essential oils properly, and invite your friends to do it. I think that we could make a really big difference if we can teach people to focus on self-care in healthy, sustainable ways. We could rewrite the script on it, because right now the script is kind of like, indulgent. And so self-care that is sustainable is not indulgent. It's just self-aware, and it's aware of all the aspects of ourselves. So yeah, what if we had more people in the world who were actually taking care of themselves in these ways? And it allows us to take care of our people a little bit better. So let's go ahead and do that together. You can jump in, join me on social media. That's a little picture of my Instagram. And this is my website. You can go and grab a PDF of this simple schedule and just be encouraged. So it really is time to make yourself a priority. If you need any of the oil samples that I'm talking about in this challenge or in this schedule that you haven't, if you haven't enrolled with anybody yet and you don't have anybody sharing with you in your actual life, this is your actual life too, but I'm on social media. So if you haven't, a friend hasn't already shared oils with you, you can come to me and I will send you some samples and you can begin to integrate these practices, like focusing on your body, mind, and spirit, focusing on simple journaling practices, simple breathing practices, all these things that are easily woven into your lifestyle to make yourself a better person. So I hope that's helpful for you. That's what I always say, because I really do. The only reason I share stuff is because I hope it's helpful for you. So anyways, let's connect and go out and have a great day. You can take care of yourself without making it an expense to others. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's do that. Talk to you soon.